Well, hello there, motherfuckers, and welcome to a review of The Legend of Zelda. Yes, that's right, the original for the NES. I just finished playing this game again. This was maybe, like my 5th or 6th playthrough of the game, in all honesty. I've beaten the game a few times, but after going through Breath of the Wild, I figured, what a better way to revisit the Legend of Zelda franchise than by going through the first initial inaugural game of the series, and I had a lot of fun with it. This is also, I do have to say, for me anyway, I do believe that this game gives me a harder time than the second game. Many people argue that the second game is very difficult, and it is to a point, but I actually really prefer that game to this one. And I know that's a very shocking statement, and that's how I like to open up these reviews. So, why do I think that the second game is better? This game is a classic. I really like it. You know, you enter in the cave in the beginning of the game, and you're told, you know, it's dangerous to go alone, take this. I mean, it's epic, it's nostalgic, it's, you know, this is really like the epitome of gaming here. I mean, this is the first game in a series that spans so many games and has such a legacy behind it. It is definitely a cryptic game. There's many parts in this game that, you know, if you didn't know about it through the whole lore of the Zelda franchise, or you didn't read about a lot of these classic moments in video game magazines or online, you know, you would be pretty stumped. And that would translate into the sequel as well. And, you know, you take a look at parts like The Lost Woods, which is a part halfway through the game where you have to go into a particular pattern or you will be subjected to an endless loop. I think that that is genius. I think that that is some great programming there. That's some great game design. Because imagine, you know, a kid in the 80s just happening to come apart. You know, there's no way of not coming upon this part in the game. It's mandatory for progression. You'll be going through an endless loop. I remember reading an article in Game Informer when they actually placed this game as the #1 game. I think it was their 100th issue celebration. They placed this game as the #1 game of all time, which, you know, I definitely have some gripes with. There's definitely a lot of other Zelda games that I would have put above this game, but I could see why they might do that. I mean, this game really birthed a legacy. This game influenced so many other games. The Legend of Zelda is an influencer, to say the least. But, you know, they talked about how a kid might have thought it was a glitch in the game and tried to return it, saying that the game was defective, and then saying that the game shop owner then leaned over the counter and whispered, you know, that you have to, you know, do this specific pattern. What is it? I believe it's isn't it up, down, left, or something like that, or left, up, down? I don't really remember, but whatever it is, I always know when I'm playing the game. But I remember reading that article and saying, like, wow, you know, they're right about that. This game does have a bit of a legacy. It does have lore to it. It's definitely in the annals of the, you know, video game Hall of Fame. You know, talk about maybe the official Hall of Fame. I'm talking about my Hall of Fame, gamers' personal Hall of Fame. You know, so You've got an adventure here. It's a very basic storyline. It's a storyline that would carry over to the majority of the Zelda games. There's an evil pig named Ganon, and he's stolen the Triforce of Power, and he has captured the Princess Zelda, which is the, you know, I always thought that was very odd when you kind of think back on it. Many people think that this guy, Link, who's the main character of this game, is Zelda. Many people will call him Zelda. And I remember, like, even throughout high school, people, you know, calling Link Zelda. Like, oh, you know, Zelda and everything like that. And it's, you know, I could see why people might think that. The star of Super Mario Brothers, you know, is Mario. So his name is rightfully in the title. Sonic the Hedgehog. Yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog is definitely the star of that game. And, you know, it's like, I guess it would be like if you called Master Chief Halo or something like that. But I'm just saying it's kind of weird that another character in the game who is not really seen, she's seen at the end of the game, has her name in the title. I don't know, it's just bizarre. I could see why people might make that mistake, but I guess The Legend of Zelda sounds a lot better than The Legend of Link, and it's a title that's carried over to all the games, pretty much. So, it's a really enjoyable game. You know, you have this pretty big map for the time. It's very open-ended. You could actually enter into the majority of the dungeons right from the start. I mean, it's pretty crazy when you think about that. And that's why a lot of people keep comparing this game to the Breath of the Wild, how it's very open-ended. You know, there are some restrictions. If you don't have a certain item, you can't access. But, you know, it is kind of cool that you can do certain dungeons in a different order. Now, they'll be very difficult if you start with a later dungeon, but needless to say, the fact that you have that option, you know, the fact that you're able to do those things, and this is a game that definitely doesn't hold your hand. It was definitely a lot different than Super Mario Brothers. You know, you hold right and you're pretty much going to find your way. In this game, it's like, well, if you hold right, well, you know, you're just going to basically come to a dead end eventually, and you're going to have to explore other areas of the map. You know, there's a lot of very peculiar elements to this game. Like, you'll be wandering around this whole map until you finally figure out that you're supposed to use a red candle flame to burn a random bush. I mean, when you kind of look where the bush is, people have argued this for quite some time, trying to say that this is a bad game, and it's kind of cryptic. I think it's almost criminal to say that this game is bad. I mean, just for a few elements that are kind of mysterious. But I see where people try to put this in context. You didn't exactly have, you know, online resources to go help you if you got stuck. You could be wandering around like an aimless asshole for hours without making any types of progression if you didn't know that secret about the bush, or you didn't know the secret about the lost woods. You know, so I kind of get where people are coming from. For me, what I get the most pissed off at this game is these fucking dark nuts, especially these blue motherfuckers. These guys are a freaking nightmare, to say the least. These guys will eat up your hearts, they will kick your ass, and they will show no mercy. I mean, I try to use bombs on them, I try to sneak up behind them, but their patterns are so erratic. You know, that's the thing, like, a lot of these enemies in the game, they will give Link a wallop. I mean, especially the Dark Nuts and the Wizrobes. Oh my god. Especially the blue variety. If something is blue in this game, avoid it like the plague, pretty much. Because those are probably the most deadly enemies in the game. The blue Wizrobes and the blue Dark Nuts are just unforgiving. I mean, they will take your hearts, and their patterns are so erratic. They also move incredibly fast, and you know, you will see that the blue Wizrobes, they just keep firing away with their magic shots, and it's infuriating. You know, and especially every single time you die, you have to start with 3 hearts. So, you know, and I had to keep on exiting out of dungeons, getting red potions to fill my health, or try to farm for health by killing various enemies, and that kind of gets a little bit annoying. Health is not as readily available as it should be, and, you know, but these are just minor complaints. When you take a look at the game as a whole, there's many different tools to use, the bomb, the bow and arrow. There's, you know, a lot of, there's a lot of variety that was not seen at the time, and if you look at this game as a period piece, it's very important, it's very good, and it's definitely a lot of fun to go back to where it all started. You know, when Zelda was very, very, like, immature, you know, there wasn't a lot of items available. At the time, it was a lot of variety, but, you know, looking back on it, I mean, you take a look at the arsenal that Link has in, say, you know, Ocarina of Time or Breath of the Wild. I mean, it really pales in comparison. But to go back, you know, to the simpler times in the Legend of Zelda series was definitely a lot of fun, and I enjoyed my trip back to the early days of Hyrule. Now, every Zelda game has a sense of mystery to it, but there's something about this game that it feels a little bit more mysterious than the others. It really does, and I think it is a lot of the more cryptic moments in the game. But when you enter into a dungeon and you hear that music, it's creepy, it's mysterious. You really feel like you've entered into the catacombs, and that, you know, there's danger ahead, and, you know, you get this feeling inside. You get chills. You know that you're playing something special. And if you have not played this game yet, if you know, because there have been a lot of negative reviews here on YouTube of this game, I definitely suggest it, especially if you really like Breath of the Wild and you haven't experienced this. You should definitely go check it out. Well, guys, I hope you all enjoyed the review. Please, you know, subscribe, click the bell so you get all the notifications, check out all my other videos here on this channel, and I will see you next time.